Sage Wanderer here, and this is the story of the time that I almost died in quicksand. Dun, dun, dun. Thanks to the random poster on a previous video who's made a statement that Q is code for quicksand, because it made me remember this story of the time I almost died in the quicksand. So if you know me and you've watched this channel, you know that even though I'm aging, I'm still kind of an adventurous person. And when I was young, I was very adventurous. And I have a certain lack of fear. I'm kind of fearless. And so I would oftentimes go out and do adventurous things solo. You know, I'd go places where you really shouldn't go by yourself, way high in the mountains, way far back in the woods, way up down that creek, you know, down in that well, up in that cave, whatever the case may be. And I did those things completely by myself. And I'm a little more, as I got children and they were with me, I had to dial it back a notch. But as they grew up, I started having these adventures and taking my kids with me, like the rally we recently went to and our trip up to Diamond Lake that we just got back from. But I was fishing on a Texas lake, a pretty new Texas lake, and you know, quicksand is different every place. And sometimes, like in Oregon, there's a little bit of water on top of quicksand. It doesn't look like land at all. It looks like water, and you don't know you're in it unless you step in the water. So just don't step in the water, and you're good to go. But this quicksand in Texas was very different, and I had honestly never gave quicksand a thought. I didn't even know they had quicksand in Texas, to tell you the truth. I was not from there. So I had a little John boat with a 35 horsepower Johnson motor on it, and it had a trolling motor, and it was so lightweight and had such a low draft and a flat bottom that I could take it way up in creek channels. So I went up this creek channel off of Joe Pool Lake until the creek channel ended. And what had happened is that there was this land between the end of the creek channel and the rest of the creek. So there was like a nice round pool on the other side of this, looked like a sandbar. And I thought maybe water levels had gone down. And that's what had created this kind of, I don't know, pool that you couldn't get a boat in. And so there was this beach that kind of separated the main body I was in from the pool I wanted to get into. And I was just going to beach the boat, step off the bow of the boat with a fishing pole, and go around and fish that hole, because when I pulled back in there, I saw a big fish, jump in that hole on the other side. So I assumed water levels had gone down and trapped that fish in the pool, and maybe many others. And so I was going to go take advantage of that situation. Once again, all by myself. People knew I was on the lake, but they had no idea where I was. This was way before cell phones or GPS or any of that. And had I succumbed to the quicksand, people would have just found my boat floating, and they probably would have never found my body, because who would have gone up that creek channel looking for me the way, I mean, I was way up. I was way off the lake. And so anyway, my plan was beach the boat, grab a fishing pole, step off the bow of the boat, and go fish that hole. And as I did, just as I walked past the front, my bow line was coiled up on the front bow of the boat. And the old Marine, my dad, his voice sometimes pops up in my head, giving me, you know, reminding me of things he taught me. How's that? Like, it's an instant replay in certain situations. And more than once, it saved my life. And this is one of those times, because a voice in my head said, remember to toss the bow line out before you step off the boat. Because in that kind of situation on a beach or a rocky shoal, if you were to step off the boat kicks back, and you land on dry ground or in shallow water, but the boat kicks out behind you, and if you don't have the bow line on the ground, you'll lose your boat and you have to swim for it. So a voice said, throw that bow line out. So I had about a 15-foot bow line, and I just tossed it out on the beach, and I stepped right off. And when I did, whoop, I went down to my armpits in something that was the consistency of Cool Whip. Fluffy and unable to get a hold of. I couldn't pull myself out. There was nothing under my feet. I was suspended in my armpits in Cool Whip. What looked like a sandy beach, and even sounded like it when I run my boat up on it. When I stepped into it, it could not support my weight, and I went up to my armpits, and I was sinking. I was getting deeper as I struggled. And I had a fishing pole in my left hand, and I'd thrown the bow line out, but I couldn't reach the bow line, and I looked behind me, and the boat, sure enough, had kicked out, and it was leaving me. And I'm stuck up to my armpits with a fishing pole in quicksand, and my boat is leaving. And I look over, and just beyond reach, and I reached for it and I couldn't get my arm far enough out there to reach it. Just beyond reach was the bow line doing this as the boat kicked out and floated back up in the channel with the current. And there's the thing on top of the quicksand, but I can't reach it. So I grab it and I use the fishing pole, and I swat it with that fishing pole and get it by the eye on the bow rope, and I pull it over to me, and I get a hold of it. And I'm like, there's my lifeline. I'm gonna live. And so I pull the boat back over like this slowly until it's right above me. Right above me is the front of the boat. And I pull the boat down as far as I can, and I get a hold of it like this with both hands, and I do a kind of reverse pull up until I can get an elbow on, and I pull myself all the way back up until I'm sitting on the bow of the boat going, I almost died. I almost died. They would have never found my body. It would have just been this guy suspended, in this whipped cream kind of consistency of whatever that was. And I guess it was quicksand. I mean, it's the epitome of quicksand. If you ask me, it's what I always thought quicksand would be like. And yeah, they never would have found me. They would have found my boat, but there's no way they would have got up in that channel and found my body. So once again, the old Marine's voice in my head, it saved my life. And you're going to see that as a reoccurring theme as I tell you about these multiple times that I have encountered near-death experiences. So that's the story of the time that I almost died in quicksand.